Florida enters a pivotal year under Billy Napier, and it's a season in which a lot can go right, but they need some players to take a step forward. And the 10 guys that we're going to talk about today will make that happen after a disappointing year. We start with Desmond Watson. I think that maybe he's not the most talented player on the defensive line, but he is someone you know for sure at 6'5", 449 pounds. The size is obviously what we talk about, and he's going to eat up a lot of space. You're going to see him take on a lot of double teams, maybe even triple teams, and really not move much. I think that you've seen him do a lot of good things in the trenches, and you're going to see that again in 2023. Now, it's a defense that has plenty of talent. It's just a matter of taking that step forward as a unit and seeing where that can go. Now, it starts up front, but if Watson can be a contributor, he's probably not going to be, no, he's not going to be a three down type guy, but he is going to be a plug and play type player. And they need those kind of guys to be efficient when they're on the field. They can't take plays off, they can't have a bad rep. And Watson's someone that can take a step forward. Another guy that's going to elevate this team if he can play well is Graham Mertz, the Wisconsin transfer, gets a fresh start with a new coach. And obviously, his time at Wisconsin was up and down, and it wasn't what everyone expected. But you see a guy who has the talent. I think that there is talent there to work with. It's just a matter of putting him in the right system. And I like Billy Napier's system better than what Mertz was running at Wisconsin. I think that gives him more opportunities to be more relaxed, to make plays. And again, he is going to be the big reason why this team does or does not take a step forward. This quarterback position needs to play better than people expect because Anthony Richardson is gone and replacing him isn't going to be easy. It's not going to be the level of Anthony Richardson in terms of play, but Graham Mertz can still make this offense pretty solid if he can play well and play to the potential that people thought he could. Now, when you go back to the defensive side of the ball, we talked about the talent before, and the secondary has plenty of it. Jaden Hill is one of those corners that we'll talk about today, and he has pretty decent size for a corner, and he's someone who is going to benefit playing opposite of the guy we'll talk about later. And when you look at Florida's history, Florida's had a lot of exciting playmakers come through their program in the secondary. And Jaden Hill is a guy who can step up and be just another player in that lineage of playmakers in the secondary. I think that this is a team, a defense, like I said before, that has the talent to do it, has the talent to be really, really good. It's just a matter of certain players stepping up and playing better. Now, if the unit plays better as a whole, you're going to see certain individuals step up as well. And that can be a good, it's a two-way street. If individuals step up and play well, the unit can play better as a whole. If the unit is just playing better as a whole, naturally those individuals step up, and Jaden Hill is one of those guys. Now, a transfer that comes in on the defensive side of the ball, who I think will have an instant impact, a bigger impact than Desmond Watson, is Cameron Jackson, who transferred from Memphis. Really didn't get a ton of attention. I mean, you look at his stats again. We talk about defensive tackles, nose tackles, those types of players don't get a ton of attention unless they have really good stats. And honestly, he didn't really have the production that you would want or want to see if you were going to hype up someone. But he, make no mistake about it, is a player that can be disruptive. You look at what he brings to the table: 6'6", 355 pounds. He brings good size to the table. He brings good size to this defense, and he's going to be able to compete right away. All the reports from camp have been saying from the spring have told us that he is going to be a contributor for Florida's defense, and that was a huge pickup for them. Another transfer that will make an impact is TERADJA Mitchell. You look at the Ohio State linebacker, 6'2", 243 pounds. He was a starter at one point for the Buckeyes, but given the amount of talent that Ohio State brings into campus every single year, it's tough to keep your starting job. It is tough to keep reps, and he just lost his job and decided he needed a new start. That doesn't mean he's bad. He's still a very talented player, and I think that that's going to be huge for the Gators this year. If he can get back to what he was doing when he was a starter, this defense looks really good. I'm really excited about what the defense can do. And it's just a matter, again, there's lots of pieces that you like. It's just a matter of, can guys step up and can they take their game to the next level? Speaking of next level, you mentioned him earlier, Jason Marshall Jr. This is a guy who I think can play on Sundays. You think the talent, like I said before, that Florida's had in the secondary, first round talent, Jason Marshall can be a first round player. I think that he is extremely talented. He's really, really good. making plays on the football, covering guys downfield. And you're going to see that this year. You're going to see that again if this unit can take a step forward. But if they don't, Jason Marshall is someone who their other teams are probably going to avoid. You're probably going to see teams throw the other way. You're not going to see too many opportunities for him. They might test him every now and again. And if this defense isn't as good as everyone expects, then maybe he does get tested a little bit more. And I think you're going to see a guy who plays really well when tested. And that's huge for Florida to continue that tradition of sending playmakers to the NFL. And when you're looking at this defense, honestly, it has so much potential. They have so many players that you can talk about. And at the end of the year, maybe we are talking about them in terms of all conference, maybe even all American. I think you're looking at guys like even like Princely UMANMIELEN. You're looking at players who can be disruptive, can affect the game in many ways. And this defensive line has the opportunity to be able to do that. And we talked about two other guys before. We talked about Cameron Jackson. We talked about Watson. Brinsley's another guy who you look at his stats from last year: 9.5 tackles for loss, 4.5 sacks. That was with a group that was relatively, I wouldn't say deep, but they had guys that were competing for reps. So to be able to stand out in that crowd gives you a lot of excitement for this year. 6'5", 245 pounds. I think that he can be a monster for the Gators defense. It's just a matter of, again, putting it all together, hoping the other guys step up as well. Now, flipping over to the offensive side of the ball, there are three guys we're going to talk about here that do a phenomenal job of being explosive, and you're going to need to know their names if you don't already. And Ricky Pearsall is one of them. Ricky is a phenomenal talent, averaged 20 yards per catch, which honestly surprised me when I looked through this. When I looked at who came back and what they did last year, Ricky Pearsall having 20 yards per catch was not something I expected to see. Coming in from Arizona State, he was someone who I think a lot of people expected to be a solid contributor. I don't think a lot of people tabbed him to be an explosive weapon, but he did that last year. Only 33 catches, but he made the most of it. And now you're going to see what he can do with a new quarterback. That's going to be the biggest thing. Is now Anthony Richardson is gone. Who gets the quarterback job, whether it's Graham Mertz, whether it's Jack Miller, and can they get Ricky Pearsall the ball? Someone else also has to step up. Now that you have a couple guys in the transfer portal and you see other players going to the NFL draft, you're looking at Ricky Pearsall as someone who can be an X factor for this offense and for that quarterback. The passing attack needs to continue being explosive, needs to continue to be reliable. And if not, I guess you can rely on the running backs to do the job. And with the offensive line that they have, it's easy to see why that's probably an option. But the running backs are extremely talented. And honestly, you could probably flip either of these guys back and forth between 1 and 2. Trevor Etienne is going to be second for now. But when it's all said and done, I think he has the higher ceiling long term than the guy we'll talk about next. Trevor Etienne, brother of Travis Etienne, was extremely explosive. And we've already seen in the offseason that he's added some speed to his game. He is someone who is taking his job seriously. And he flirted with the transfer portal, but decided to come back. And now he gets a chance to prove that he is going to be an absolute nightmare for the SEC and the teams that the Florida Gators face. I really like his game. I really like the explosive nature that he brings to the table. You're just not going to see a ton of guys that can do what he can do. Now, I'd like to see him get more involved if they can't give him as many touches in the backfield. But I think that you're looking at a player who can make big plays. And other thing is, especially with some of the maybe there's a lack of depth at wide receiver in terms of proven commodities. Trevor Etienne could be someone maybe you line up in the slot or just throw to out of the backfield. That's something you can add to this offense. And I'm sure Billy Napier and his staff will look at that. Now, the top guy we'll talk about is Montrell Johnson. He is the reliable starter, a little bit of a bigger back and 5'11", 218 pounds. And I really like his game too. It's going to be a little bit different. It's that thunder and lightning combination. Montrell Johnson's probably going to run you over, and Trevor Etienne's going to find a way to run away from you. But I think Montrell Johnson has a little bit of wiggle to him as well. I really like this 1-2 combo, especially when the passing attack needs some time to figure things out. That's going to be key. I think that Florida has the pieces in place to be successful. Now, they're probably not competing with the Tennessees or the Georgias of the SEC East, but they can sit at third and get in good position to build when Billy Napier has a successful year and comes back next year. That's going to be a huge thing. I think a lot of people are already skeptical of what Billy Napier can do. I think there are some naysayers that have questions about what his regime will look like and if it continues. And I think that this team has a lot of exciting pieces. You look at the defense, there's potential. There's potential on the offense as well. It's just a matter of putting everything together and finding ways to win football games. Now you have to produce two good units, especially in the SEC. You just can't rely on individual talent. And honestly, Florida doesn't have that individual talent that can have one or two guys win games. They have to play well as a unit and they have the ability to do that. It's just a matter of finding ways to work together to get chemistry, and that's what you're going to do in the offseason. But when you look at the talent level, they are not lacking by any means.